Alexander the Great's conquests are often viewed simply as military victories. But the real question is this: how did a single man at such a young age destabilize the political order of 3 continents? Approximately a century before the decade of 334 BC, Greece was a diverse yet culturally remarkable region. Mountain ranges, seaports, and vast natural landscapes deeply influenced its politics, military, and society. Each Greek city-state had its own government, army, and economic strength, often existing either in alliance or rivalry with one another. Athens, the most famous democratic state of Greece, was a hub of knowledge and arts. It witnessed unparalleled progress in philosophy, literature, drama, and fine arts. The citizens of Athens considered their political and military rights as an integral part of their identity. Athenian military strength focused mainly on naval power, and their mastery of seafaring made them formidable against their enemies. In contrast, Sparta was a rigid military state. Every citizen grew up trained as a soldier from a young age. Boys entered military discipline at the age of 6, and each citizen devoted a part of his life to military training. Spartan soldiers were disciplined and organized, and every citizen regarded their military duty as more important than social or religious obligations. In 480 BC, the Persian Empire launched a historic invasion of Greece. At Thermopylae, 300 Spartans, along with other Greek soldiers, held off the enemy advance for 3 days. Although the Greek forces were ultimately defeated, their sacrifice boosted Greek morale and later helped the Greeks defeat the Persian navy in the naval battle of Salamis. The following year, at the Battle of Plataea, the Greeks decisively defeated the Persian army, ending the invasion. After these wars, Greek cities enjoyed nearly 50 years of a golden age, marked by extraordinary developments in philosophy, arts, science, and politics. However, internal tensions and power struggles between city-states weakened Greece from within. Soon, the growing rivalry between Sparta and Athens dragged the entire region into war, and Greece endured nearly a century of continuous conflict. In the north, Macedonia was considered a mountainous and relatively underdeveloped state. Greek historians partially regarded it as non-Greek, but its fate changed under the leadership of Philip II. Philip strengthened his army and introduced one of his most significant innovations, the sarissa, an 18-foot-long spear used in the Macedonian phalanx. The formation of the phalanx applied unstoppable pressure on enemies, giving the Macedonian army superiority on the battlefield. In 338 BC, Philip II defeated the combined forces of Athens and Thebes at the Battle of Cheronea. Following this victory, Philip established control over most Greek territories and founded the Hellenic League, or the League of Corinth, which included all Greek city-states except Sparta. Philip prepared for a campaign against the Persian Empire, but in 336 BC, he was assassinated in a conspiracy. After Philip's death, his son Alexander the Great became king at only 20 years old. Alexander had received early education under the philosopher Aristotle and had already participated in several military campaigns in his youth. Upon taking the throne, he eliminated potential rivals and crushed rebellions in central Greece. He completely destroyed the city of Thebes, enslaving its inhabitants to send a clear message of his power. In the spring of 334 BC, Alexander crossed the Hellespont with the united Greek forces and began his campaign against the Persian Empire in Asia Minor. His army consisted of approximately 40,000 highly trained soldiers, ready to challenge the might of Persia. In the spring of 334 BC, Alexander the Great crossed the Hellespont with the combined forces of the Greek alliance and entered Asia Minor. His objective was clear: to seize control of the western territories of the Persian Empire and weaken its military strength before the larger confrontation ahead. Persian commanders positioned their forces along the banks of the Granicus River. The river was wide but shallow, with steep and difficult banks. The Persian front line consisted of nearly 10,000 cavalrymen, drawn from regions such as Iran, Bactria, and Paphlagonia. Behind them stood Greek mercenary infantry, whose loyalty against Alexander's Greek army was considered uncertain. Alexander chose to attack immediately in daylight rather than wait for nightfall. He advanced his right wing first and personally led his elite cavalry straight into the center of the Persian line. During the fierce fighting, 2 Persian nobles attempted to kill him, but Alexander's courage, speed, and combat skill allowed him to defeat them. The Macedonian army achieved a decisive victory at the Battle of the Granicus. This triumph secured Asia Minor and marked Alexander's first major success, revealing his bold leadership, tactical intelligence, and exceptional military ability to the world. In 333 BC, Alexander advanced south through the regions of Lebanon and Palestine. Near the Pinarus River, he encountered the Persian army led personally by King Darius III. The Persian forces were nearly twice the size of Alexander's army. They included 10,000 immortals, the elite household troops of Persia, highly trained cavalry units, Greek mercenaries, and heavy war equipment such as scythed chariots and war elephants. Alexander employed his proven strategy. He advanced his right wing toward the mountainous terrain, forcing the Persian army to weaken its central position. When Darius shifted troops from the center, Alexander launched a direct assault with his companion cavalry and Macedonian phalanx, breaking through the Persian line. Darius fled the battlefield in fear, leaving behind his mother, wife, and children, who were captured by Alexander. Alexander treated them with respect and dignity, demonstrating not only military dominance but also political intelligence and restraint. After his victories at Granicus and Issus, Alexander turned his attention to the Persian-controlled coastal regions. The Greek cities of Miletus and Halicarnassus were key Persian strongholds. Alexander used both siege warfare and direct assaults to capture them, eventually eliminating Persian naval influence in the region. In 332 BC, Alexander entered Egypt, where he was welcomed by the local population as a liberator rather than a conqueror. In Memphis, he was crowned pharaoh, and along the banks of the Nile River, he founded the city of Alexandria. These victories demonstrated not only Alexander's military strength, but also his political vision and ability to build alliances with local populations. In the city of Gordium, Alexander encountered a legendary object known as the Gordian knot. According to ancient prophecy, whoever could untie the knot was destined to rule all of Asia. Instead of attempting to untangle it, Alexander drew his sword and cut through the knot in a single decisive strike. This act symbolized his practical mindset, fearless leadership, and belief that destiny favored decisive action over tradition. After his victory at Issus in 333 BC, Alexander launched his military campaign into Syria and Palestine. These regions contained key administrative and military centers of the Persian Empire, including heavily fortified coastal cities. Alexander divided his army into multiple formations. One group applied pressure through prolonged sieges against strong fortresses, while another weakened Persian forces through open field engagements. Fighting in the Taurus Mountains and along the Mediterranean coast was intense and prolonged. Greek cities such as Miletus and Halicarnassus, aligned with Persian authority, offered strong resistance. Alexander employed advanced siege warfare techniques, including siege towers, ladders, and organized military encampments. Eventually, these cities fell, and their populations either fled or were enslaved. Following these campaigns, Alexander marched toward Egypt. In 332 BC, Egypt was under Persian control, but Alexander's growing reputation and military power compelled local rulers to surrender without resistance. Upon entering Memphis, Alexander was welcomed by the local population as a liberator and conqueror. He participated in religious ceremonies and adopted pharaonic traditions to gain the trust of the Egyptian people. Along the banks of the Nile River, Alexander founded the city of Alexandria, which would later become a major center of learning, trade, and military power. These achievements demonstrated not only Alexander's military strength, but also his political intelligence. He secured his rule by forming alliances with local populations rather than relying solely on force. After securing Egypt, Alexander turned his attention toward the heart of the Persian Empire, Iran. His objective was the complete defeat of the Persian royal army and the total control of the empire. Through a combination of military pressure and political negotiation, Alexander brought various Persian provinces under his authority. He swiftly suppressed local rebellions to ensure stability in newly conquered cities. During this phase, he captured major cities such as Sardis, Seleucia, and Gordium, establishing cooperation with local populations and military governors to consolidate his rule. Alexander continued his advance by capturing numerous fortresses and coastal cities in western Persia. Many of these cities supported Persian forces, but Alexander's superior tactics and battlefield coordination weakened their resistance. Persian household troops and Greek mercenaries were repeatedly defeated. Alexander demonstrated exceptional coordination between the Macedonian phalanx, the companion cavalry, and the elite Hypaspists. After each victory, he reinforced his authority through diplomacy and reconciliation, ensuring long-term control rather than temporary domination. These successive victories cleared the path for Alexander's advance into the central regions of the Persian Empire. He demonstrated not only military and political mastery, but also leadership, courage, and extraordinary strategic vision, systematically breaking the morale and resistance of his enemies. In 331 BC, Alexander the Great organized his army in the western regions of Persia and advanced toward the Euphrates River. His objective was to reach the heart of the Persian Empire, defeat Darius III's army, and bring the entire empire under his control. Alexander's army, already victorious at Granicus and Issus, remained highly disciplined and well-trained. The phalanx, companion cavalry, and Hypaspists showcased their full skill and training. Darius III gathered his main forces on a vast plain to leverage his numerical superiority. The Persian army numbered between 50,000 and 80,000 soldiers, including infantry, cavalry, scythed chariots, and war elephants. Darius leveled the battlefield to maximize the effectiveness of his chariots and cavalry. Alexander advanced his right wing toward the mountainous regions to weaken the enemy center. During the movement of the right wing, the Persian army withdrew units from the center, attempting to contain Alexander. Using his companion cavalry and phalanx, Alexander struck the center, breaking the front lines before Darius. As a result of Alexander's fierce attack, Darius fled in his chariot, terrified. The Persian center collapsed, and the remaining army began to retreat to save themselves. Alexander ensured the safety of Darius's family and treated them humanely, demonstrating his political insight and strategic acumen. Following Darius's defeat, Alexander entered Babylon and secured the acknowledgement of his authority from local officials. Sat on the royal throne in Susa, formally declaring himself ruler of Persia. These actions reflected not only military victory, but also Alexander's political wisdom, strategy, and ability to establish relations with local populations. In the various provinces of Persia, Alexander maintained loyal governors to ensure local order, defeated rebellious rulers and local chiefs or took military action against them, founded several new cities, later known by his name, including Alexandria Arachosia, modern Kandahar, and Alexandria Eschate, along the Jaxartes River. At the Persian gates, Alexander faced a brave but limited Persian force attempting to block his army. Using mountain passes and unexpected routes, Alexander surrounded the enemy. The Persian forces were completely defeated, and Alexander adopted a policy of reconciliation with local rulers and communities. In 330 BC, Alexander turned toward the eastern provinces of Iran, Bactria and Sogdia. These regions were defined by harsh mountain ranges and narrow deserts. The local tribes were highly skilled in warfare and possessed strong defensive control over their terrain. To gain greater flexibility in attacking through mountains and valleys, Alexander divided his army into two separate columns. At first, local chieftains pretended to submit, but as Alexander's forces approached, they openly rebelled and launched armed resistance. Alexander responded swiftly and crushed the rebellion. In Bactria, the provincial governor Satibazanes concealed his revolt, but when he confronted Alexander directly, he was eliminated. Alexander defeated Satibazanes in single combat, sending a clear warning to other local leaders and discouraging further resistance. To strengthen his military and administrative presence in the Eastern Empire, Alexander founded several new cities, naming them after himself: Alexandria Ariana, modern Herat; Alexandria Arachosia, modern Kandahar; Alexandria Eshate, near the Jaxartes River. These cities became military bases and trade centers, reinforcing Alexander's strategic control and local governance. In Bactria and Sogdia, Alexander fought numerous small and large-scale engagements against local tribes. These conflicts were often guerrilla-style raids, as the tribes used mountains and forests to launch surprise attacks. Through superior military skill, advanced battlefield coordination, and cooperation with local guides, Alexander gradually defeated these tribes. Along the banks of the Jaxartes River, Alexander founded Alexandria Eshate. This marked the easternmost limit of his campaigns, where he defeated tribes beyond the river and established military outposts to secure the frontier. Alexander's forces surrounded and subdued enemies by maneuvering through mountain passes and narrow routes. He installed loyal local rulers to maintain regional administration. This strategy ensured not only military victory, but also helped win the support of the local population. After years of continuous campaigning, thousands of miles of travel, and constant warfare, Alexander's soldiers became exhausted and homesick. Alexander began adopting Persian customs and clothing, which created distance between him and his longtime Macedonian companions. Many officers and soldiers grew resentful, believing Alexander was favoring Persian advisors and local elites over his own men. In 327 BC, Alexander married Roxana, the daughter of a Bactrian noble. This marriage was significant not only personally, but also politically, helping to reduce local rebellions and strengthen alliances with regional leaders. Alexander began preparing his army to cross the Hindu Kush mountains and enter the Indus River Valley. He developed detailed military plans to conquer local forts, tribes, and small cities. Through continued training, siege techniques, and alliances with local rulers, Alexander laid the foundation for his successful advance into India. Alexander's largest and costliest battle took place along the banks of the Hydaspes River, facing King Porus of Porus. Porus commanded war elephants, cavalry, and a strong infantry, posing a new challenge for the Greek army. Alexander employed a combination of naval and ground assaults, first weakening the elephant ranks and then sending his companion cavalry and phalanx toward the enemy's center. The Greek army suffered heavy losses at the Battle of Hydaspes, but Alexander's skill and fearless leadership ensured victory. Despite Porus's brave resistance, Alexander reinstated him with honor, setting an example of loyalty for local rulers. After reaching the eastern limits of India, Alexander halted his army at the river Beas, known to the Greeks as the Hyphasis. The soldiers, exhausted after nearly 8 continuous years of warfare, refused to march further east. Recognizing the will of his army, Alexander accepted their decision and redirected the campaign southward, following the river routes toward the Indus. Before turning west, Alexander secured the eastern territories by subduing local tribes and establishing military garrisons in conquered regions. Part of the army returned to Iran by sea under the command of Nearchus, while Alexander led the remaining forces through harsh land routes and deserts. The march through the Gedrosian desert proved catastrophic. Extreme heat, lack of water, and starvation caused heavy losses among the troops. Upon returning to Iran, Alexander initiated major administrative reforms across former Persian provinces and key cities. He appointed viceroys and governors to ensure order and stability throughout the empire. Several Persian officials were retained in their positions on the condition that they swore loyalty to Alexander. Alexander took concrete steps to protect the financial and social rights of his soldiers. He paid off all outstanding debts of the army and ensured proper training for young recruits to maintain a permanent military force. Around 30,000 youths were trained in Macedonian military discipline, preparing them to safeguard the future of the empire. To unite Macedonian and Persian societies, Alexander arranged marriages between his officers and women from local noble families. He himself married 2 Persian princesses, reinforcing political alliances and cultural integration. These policies played a crucial role in gaining the loyalty of local rulers and populations. Some Macedonian soldiers, deeply attached to traditional Greek customs, grew resentful of Persian practices being adopted at court. At Opis, unrest escalated into open rebellion against Alexander's Persian advisors and administrative methods. Alexander punished the instigators, suppressed the revolt, and delivered a powerful speech that restored morale and loyalty within the army. Hephaestion, Alexander's closest companion and most trusted general, died following an illness. Overwhelmed by grief, Alexander refused food and drink for days and declared an official period of mourning across the empire. This loss deeply affected him, compounding the emotional and administrative burdens he already carried. Alexander continued military operations against resistant mountain tribes in Iran to secure borders and maintain internal stability. These tribes had remained unconquered even under earlier Persian kings. Through strategic brilliance, calculated force, and disciplined planning, Alexander subdued them and brought the regions under control. After returning to Babylon, Alexander received envoys from distant lands, including Ethiopia, Libya, and the European Scythians. Representatives from Lucania, Etruria, Gaul, and Iberia also arrived. Their presence symbolized international recognition of Alexander's power and the vast reach of his empire. Roxana was now pregnant, and Alexander continued planning future political and military alliances. He prepared for campaigns toward Arabia and other eastern regions. However, sudden illness and death brought these ambitions to an abrupt end. In 323 BC, in the city of Babylon, Alexander the Great suddenly fell seriously ill with a high fever. According to historical sources, possible causes include malaria, typhoid fever, complications from previous wounds, or even poisoning. However, the true cause of his death has never been definitively determined. At just 32 years of age, Alexander died as one of history's most extraordinary military commanders and conquerors. With his death, the largest empire the world had yet seen, stretching from Greece to the regions of present-day Pakistan, was left in a state of extreme instability. Alexander left behind no clear successor and no formal plan for the future of his empire. His wife Roxana and his son existed, but both were too young to rule. His generals and senior officers, once bound by loyalty, now turned against one another in a struggle for control over the empire. After Alexander's death, his most powerful generals began fighting each other to expand their influence and claim territories. These conflicts are historically known as the Wars of the Diadochi. During these wars, Alexander's family members, including his wife and children, along with many loyal advisors, were killed or forcibly removed through political intrigue. Alexander's empire was eventually divided into several major regions. Macedonia and Greece came under the control of General Antipater. Egypt was taken by General Ptolemy, who later founded the Ptolemaic dynasty. Iran and Central Asia fell into the hands of Seleucus and other generals. The Indus Valley and Punjab were governed by appointed officers who established local administrations. Following Alexander's campaigns, Greek culture, language, and artistic traditions deeply influenced the eastern regions of the empire. This fusion of Greek and Eastern civilizations gave rise to what historians call the Hellenistic Age. In Hellenistic cities, art, science, philosophy, and learning flourished. Greek systems of governance were established in Egypt, Iran, and parts of India. Greek education and cultural practices merged with local traditions, creating new social and intellectual frameworks. Some successor kingdoms achieved stability, while others collapsed quickly. In Egypt, the Ptolemaic dynasty ruled for nearly 300 years. In eastern Iran and Central Asia, the Seleucid Empire remained powerful for a limited time. In Macedonia and Greece, constant wars and rebellions continued to weaken political stability. Alexander's life and conquests permanently transformed the political, military, and cultural landscape of the ancient world. He spread advanced military strategies, battlefield tactics, and leadership principles across both Greece and the East. During the Hellenistic period, Greek knowledge and philosophy reached the Eastern world, accelerating developments in science, astronomy, philosophy, and the arts. Perhaps his greatest legacy was the opening of sustained cultural exchange between East and West, an influence that would shape civilizations for centuries. Even after his death, Alexander's fame, courage, and military genius continued to be remembered across both Greek and non-Greek worlds. Although his empire was divided, his leadership and extraordinary achievements remain immortal in history. For centuries, books, legends, and historical records about Alexander the Great were preserved and passed down across different regions of the world.